There is a specific kind of man who will never be broken by disaster. He will survive job loss, public failure, betrayal, illness. He has been tested and he held. But this man is becoming rare, not because the world has become more dangerous, because it has become less dangerous. And that is a far more insidious problem. The man who is never tested does not know he is fragile. He has evidence to the contrary. He has survived everything life has thrown at him. What he does not realize is that life has stopped throwing. This is the comfort trap, and most men alive today are already inside it.
Here is how it works. Your nervous system is not static. It is always calibrating. It reads the inputs you give it and adjusts your baseline accordingly. Challenge it daily, with cold, with hunger, with conflict, with pressure, and it builds tolerance. Remove those inputs. Replace them with warmth, convenience, entertainment, and avoidance, and it adjusts in the other direction. Every week of unchallenged ease lowers your threshold for pain. Not dramatically, quietly, without any announcement. You do not feel yourself becoming fragile. You feel yourself becoming comfortable.
The difference only becomes visible when something real arrives. A sudden loss, an unexpected failure, a confrontation you cannot avoid. And what should be a manageable difficulty becomes, to your complete surprise, a catastrophe. Not because the event was that severe, but because you had not been calibrated to absorb it. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "Most men are never truly tested until something breaks them, and by then, it is too late to build the strength they needed." He was not describing weakness of character. He was describing architecture. A building is not tested during its construction. It is tested by the storm. And if nothing was built into the foundation, the storm reveals the absence permanently.
The ancient Stoics understood something about comfort that most modern psychology has been slow to accept. Comfort is not neutral. It is actively corrosive when it is the dominant condition of your life. Marcus Aurelius, who commanded the Roman Empire during plague, war, and economic collapse, wrote in his private journal, never intended for publication, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." This is not an abstract observation. It is a diagnosis. A man who has been softened by comfort begins to outsource his stability. He becomes dependent on external validation because he has no internal structure to fall back on. When the validation is withdrawn, when the approval disappears, when the comfort is disrupted, there is nothing underneath.
Epictetus saw this from the opposite direction. He was a slave. He had no comfort, no status, no security, no guarantee of tomorrow. And from that position of total material poverty, he became the most psychologically free person in Rome, because he had already accepted the worst. Because the things comfort protects you from, he had already survived. There was nothing left to fear. He wrote, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." Not as resignation, as architecture.
The Stoic solution to the comfort trap has a name: voluntary hardship. This is not asceticism for its own sake. It is not self-punishment. It is calibration. It is the deliberate practice of removing comfort in controlled doses, not because comfort is evil, but because your nervous system must be regularly reminded that it can survive without it. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, practiced this with precision. Once a month, he stripped away every luxury, slept on a rough mat, ate the simplest food, wore plain clothing. For several days, he lived as a man with nothing. Then he asked himself the question that is at the core of this entire practice. Is this actually as bad as I feared?
The answer, every time, was no. This is the mechanism. When you voluntarily experience the thing you fear losing, the comfort, the warmth, the ease, and discover that you survive it, you have permanently reduced its power over you. You are no longer protecting something you cannot afford to lose. You are carrying something you know you can set down. A man who has chosen discomfort cannot be held hostage by discomfort that arrives without warning. He has already been there. He already knows the price. He already knows he pays it, and continues.
Here is how this applies today, not as philosophy, as practice. First, identify what you have not gone without in the longest time, not what you choose to avoid, what you have been quietly unable to imagine losing. That is your dependency. That is where the fragility lives. Second, remove it, voluntarily, for a defined period, not forever, not dramatically. 3 days without the thing your comfort depends on. 1 week of eating what is sufficient rather than what is preferred. 2 weeks of waking before you are ready. 1 hard conversation you have been rescheduling for months.
The specific hardship matters less than the mechanism. You are not trying to suffer. You are trying to demonstrate to your nervous system, with direct evidence, that it is more capable than it has been allowed to believe. Third, do this before the storm arrives, not after. The Stoics did not train for the crisis during the crisis. They trained in the ordinary days, the quiet weeks, the comfortable months, so that when the real test came, the response was already installed. Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning before the day began, not because each morning presented a new crisis, because he was building a structure that would hold when the crisis arrives. The daily practice was not for the good days. It was preparation for the worst ones.
Most men today are waiting to be tested. They are waiting for the difficulty that will force them to become stronger. They do not understand that this is the trap. The difficulty that forces you is the difficulty that breaks you, because by then, the building season is over. The Stoic approach is not reactive, it is preventive. It is the choice to meet difficulty before it becomes necessity, to practice loss before it becomes real, to train the nervous system during peace so it does not dissolve during war. There is a specific kind of man who cannot be broken by disaster. He is not the man who has never faced disaster. He is the man who trained as if disaster was always approaching, because it always is.
Epictetus said it without decoration. No man is free who is not master of himself. You already know the version of yourself you are capable of becoming. The structure that can hold a large life. The mind that can absorb real impact without collapsing. The question is not whether that version exists. It does. The question is whether you will build it during the comfortable days, the ones you still have, or wait until the storm reveals what was never constructed. Start today. Not because today is special,
because today is still ordinary. And ordinary days are the only ones you get to build in.